Welcome to Crisis in Perception, where we examine the systems shaping our world.
And today we're stepping into territory that is, well, it feels a bit abstract at first.
Yeah, because we're dealing with the invisible architecture of our thoughts.
Exactly. But it's also incredibly urgent
Yeah.
because the consequences of this architecture failing are, they are literally life and death. We're looking at the immune system of the human mind.
Right, and to do that, we are doing a deep dive into some source material that, I'll be honest, was a bit of a confrontation for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's based on the book Mental Immunity, The Science of Cognitive Immunology by Andy Norman. And I say it was a confrontation because it forced me to ask this really uncomfortable question: do I actually own my ideas, or do my ideas own me?
Yeah, that is the crux of it. It's a fascinating text because it proposes a genuine paradigm shift in how we view, well, everything going on right now.
Right.
Usually when we talk about this post-truth world we're in, or misinformation or polarization, we frame it as a content problem.
Like there's just bad information floating around out there.
Exactly. We think there's bad info,
Yeah.
so we need more fact checkers. We need to scrub the internet of the bad content.
But Norman is arguing that's the wrong lens entirely.
Completely the wrong lens.
Yeah.
He says, we're facing a susceptibility problem. It's not just about the information itself, it's about the host's ability to process it.
So it shifts the focus from the germ to the immune system.
Precisely.
But before we get into the heavy science of it, and he really does treat this as a hard science, which we'll get into, we have to ground this in reality.
Right, we need the context.
Yeah. The source material opens with a story that is it's incredibly jarring. It's this juxtaposition of two very different visits to the exact same building, the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, this is where the theory really hits the pavement.
So to set the scene, the author, Andy Norman, is from Squirrel Hill.
Which is the neighborhood where the Tree of Life is located.
Right. And he starts with this very tender, very innocent memory. His son, Kai, was attending a daycare inside the synagogue.
And Kai is, what, about 4 years old at the time?
Yeah, 4 years old, total age of pure curiosity. Right?
Oh, absolutely, taking everything in.
So Norman goes to pick him up one fall afternoon. It's a totally normal day. Kai climbs into the car seat, gets buckled in, and he's looking very proud of himself.
Like he's got a secret.
Exactly. And Norman asks the standard parent question, how was school, buddy? Who did you see today?
And Kai drops a complete bombshell.
He does. He says, good, we met God.
We met God.
Yeah. Now, if you're a parent, you pause, you think, okay, kids say the darndest things.
Right.
But Kai is totally matter-of-fact about it. He goes, yeah, God came in, gave us a high five, and left.
I love that so much. It's this beautiful moment of childhood cognition at work.
It really is. So, of course, Norman investigates. He talks to the teachers to figure out what happened. And it turns out the rabbi had dropped by the classroom to say hello to the kids.
Okay, that makes sense.
Now, the rabbi has this big, flowing beard, and the teacher, trying to be respectful, introduced him to the toddlers as a man of God.
Ah, there it is.
Right. Kai, being 4, has a very limited data set to pull from. He runs a quick calculation in his head. Big beard plus man of God equals...
Equals God.
Exactly.
Technically, from a systems perspective, that is a cognitive error.
Oh, for sure.
Kai reached a false conclusion. But let's look at the nature of that error. It was born of connection making.
Right. He was trying to make sense of his world.
Yes, it was born of trust in the teacher's authority and a logical leap based on the symbols he had available. It was, in a sense, a good mistake. It connected him to the world in a way that was warm and harmless.
But then, and this is where the whole crisis in perception theme really lands for this deep dive, because Norman pivots. Years later, another man comes to that exact same building.
Ideally, we'd say another human being with the exact same hardware, the same biological capacity for reason.
Right. Robert Bowers.
October 2018.
Yeah. A date that obviously changed everything for that community. Bowers drives to the synagogue, but he isn't there to pick up a child. He enters with a semi-automatic rifle.
And here is the critical part for our analysis.
Right.
In his mind, he isn't entering a house of worship to murder innocent people. He actually believes he is entering a tactical command center.
It's so disturbing to think about.
It is. He believes he is stepping onto a battlefield to stop a genocide against his own people.
We really have to pause on that for a second because it is so easy to just dismiss Bowers as a monster.
Or just pure evil.
Right, just a pure evil anomaly. And while his actions were undeniably evil, the source material challenges us to look deeper at the system mechanics.
Yes. Bowers believed that Jewish people were orchestrating an invasion of the United States using migrant caravans.
The Great Replacement theory.
Exactly. He screamed his beliefs out loud and opened fire, killing 11 people.
The deadliest attack on Jewish people in American history.
It was.
But the argument here is that we shouldn't just look at this as a crime, right?
If we only look at it as a crime, we miss the mechanism entirely.
Yes.
We miss the system failure. Bowers didn't wake up in a vacuum one day and just decide to be a mass murderer. His mind was, to use the terminology from the deep dive, infected.
Infected.
He was hosting a parasitic idea. This conspiracy theory had completely bypassed his mental defenses. It hijacked his reasoning machinery and directed his behavior toward violence.
And that is the core premise we need to unpack today for you listening. This idea of cognitive immunology. Because when I first read that phrase, I'll be honest, I thought it was just a loose metaphor.
Like, treat your mind like an immune system.
Exactly. Just the nice poetic way to say think critically.
Yeah.
But the source material is pretty insistent that this isn't just poetry, it's arguing for a literal biological equivalence.
It is. And to understand why we need to treat this as literal, we have to look at what a virus actually is in a system sense.
Okay, break that down for us.
So in biology, a virus is just a bundle of genetic information. It doesn't have a brain. It doesn't think.
It's not sitting there plotting against you.
Right. It has no morality, but it does have agency. It has a single goal, which is to replicate. And to do that, it has to hijack a host cell. It forces that cell to make copies of the virus, and in the process, it usually destroys the cell.
So a virus is essentially an information packet that hacks a system to reproduce itself.
Precisely. Now look at a bad idea, or what the text calls a mind parasite.
Okay.
Let's take the most extreme example used in the book, the suicide bomber.
Yeah, this one always trips me up. Because if you think about it from a purely evolutionary standpoint, logic says that behavior should weed itself out immediately.
Exactly. If you are an organism, your primary directive is survival. Any genetic trait or behavior that says kill yourself before you can reproduce should be wiped out of the gene pool instantly.
Right, it shouldn't get passed on.
But the idea of the suicide bomber, the belief that some higher power wants you to detonate a vest, it persists. It actually thrives in certain conditions. Why?
Because the idea doesn't die when the host dies.
Bingo. In fact, the idea uses the death of the host to replicate. The explosion, the subsequent news coverage, the martyrdom videos that get shared online, that is the sporulation event.
The sporulation event. That's a chilling way to put it.
The idea infects 1,000 new minds by sacrificing the one host body. That is textbook parasitic behavior. It fits the biological definition perfectly.
Okay, so if ideas are pathogens that are trying to get in and hijack our machinery to spread themselves, even at our expense, then the obvious question you have to ask is, why aren't we all infected all the time?
Right.
What is stopping these things from just overrunning every single mind?
Well, that is where the immune system comes in. Just as our physical bodies have antibodies to identify and neutralize the flu virus, our minds have evolved a mental immune system.
What does that look like in practice?
It's a collection of filtering mechanisms: habits of mind, curiosity, intellectual humility, the instinct to question things, checking sources. All of these are designed to detect bad ideas and shed them.
Shedding bad ideas. I really like that image. It implies that we all pick them up anyway.
Oh, constantly.
Like getting mud on your shoes. You step in it, but a healthy system wipes it off before it tracks into the house.
Exactly. We are all exposed to nonsense, conspiracy theories, and terrible arguments every single day. A healthy mental immune system identifies them as non-factual or harmful and just discards them.
But the system is breaking down.
Yes. The crisis we are seeing right now, from the Tree of Life shooting to the general breakdown of political discourse we see everywhere, it is a crisis of immune deficiency. Our systems are failing to filter.
Okay, let's get under the hood of the system. If we're treating this as an architectural problem, how does it actually work? Because the source material uses a very specific mechanical metaphor that I want to spend some time on. I think it's the key to understanding the whole thing.
You're talking about the liver and the fulcrum.
Yes,
Wow.
reasons fulcrum. This is the engine room of cognitive change. If you want to understand how we change our minds or why we stubbornly refuse to see, you have to visualize a lever.
Right. So for you listening, try to imagine a seesaw or maybe a heavy crowbar.
Okay, I've got it.
On one side of the lever, you have your current beliefs, your desires, your entire worldview. That's the heavy weight you are trying to lift. It has mass. It has a lot of inertia.
Makes sense. It's hard to move deeply held beliefs.
Very hard. Now, on the other side of the lever, pressing down, you have evidence. Reasons, facts, logic, counterarguments.
So evidence pushes down to lift the belief up and change it. That seems simple enough.
In theory, yes. But for any lever to actually work, it needs a pivot point, a fulcrum.
Right, otherwise it's just a stick.
Exactly. If you have a crowbar without a fulcrum, you can push down on it all day long and nothing moves. You just have a metal stick floating in space.
Yeah.
Norman defines this fulcrum in the mind as the norm of yielding to better reasons.
The norm of yielding to better reasons. That's a bit of a mouthful. Let's break that down for a second. What does yielding actually look like inside a human brain?
It's an internal commitment. It's a core value that basically says, I want to be right, but more than that, I want to be true.
Oh, that's a good distinction.
It means that when the evidence on the other side of the lever gets heavy enough, you feel a deep obligation to let your belief lift and change. That obligation is the fulcrum. It provides the resistance against which the evidence can push.
But wait, let me play devil's advocate for a second here.
Go for it.
Isn't yielding just being wishy-washy? Like,
Yeah.
if I yield to every single new argument I hear on Twitter or the news, I'm not a critical thinker, I'm just a leaf in the wind, I'm gullible. Doesn't a strong mind need to stand its ground?
That is a crucial distinction to make. A fulcrum isn't a slip and slide.
Right.
It's a pivot point. It still requires significant force to move. You shouldn't yield to bad reasons. You shouldn't yield to weak or manufactured evidence.
Okay.
But the very definition of a rational mind is one that can be moved when the force of the evidence is sufficient. If you absolutely cannot be moved, if you are standing your ground against overwhelming, verifiable evidence, you aren't doing strong. You're being broken.
Wow. So if that fulcrum is missing or damaged, what happens?
Then the lever snaps, or it just spins freely in the air. You can pile mountains of evidence on one side, high-definition photos, raw data, expert testimony, video footage, and it won't budge the belief on the other side even an inch.
Because there is no mechanical connection anymore.
Exactly. The mind becomes, quite literally, unhinged.
Unhinged. We use that word all the time as a casual insult, like, oh man, that guy on the internet is completely unhinged. But you're saying in this systems model, it's a literal mechanical description.
Yes. The hinge, the fulcrum is gone. The connection between reality and belief has been completely severed.
I want to know how we build this fulcrum, because it sounds like something we aren't just naturally born with. Think about Kai, the 4-year-old. He was making connections, but did he have a fulcrum yet?
He had a proto-fulcrum. He was open to learning and updating his model of the world. But you're right, this system is socially scaffolded.
Meaning we build it together.
Yes, we don't build it alone in a dark room. We build it through interaction, through dialogue and correction.
Which brings up the Socratic method. The text dives into this. And I have to say, I have, let's say, mixed memories of this from college.
Yeah, a lot of people do.
It always felt like a professor just relentlessly poking holes in my arguments until I felt stupid. It felt like an academic hazing ritual.
And unfortunately, that is exactly how it is often taught. But the deep dive wants to reframe Socrates completely here. We need to stop seeing Socrates as this annoying philosophical gadfly and start seeing him as a physician.
A physician?
Yes. The Socratic method asking things like, why do you believe that? Or doesn't this claim contradict your other claim? It's not an attack. It's a diagnostic tool.
It's a stress test.
Exactly. It is a stress test for the mental immune system. When I ask you for a reason for your belief, I am actively checking to see if your antibodies trigger correctly.
Oh, I see.
Can you defend the idea? Is the idea actually connected to reality? If I ask why, and you immediately get angry, or you just say because I said so, or you tell me to stop asking questions, that's a symptom?
It shows inflammation.
Yes. It shows the immune system is struggling or reacting defensively rather than functionally processing the query.
So when we engage in debate or just rigorous conversation, we aren't just fighting about who is right. We're actually helping each other check our immune systems.
Ideally, yes. This is what the text calls accountable talk.
Accountable talk.
It's a norm. Think of it as a piece of invisible software running on our cultural wetware. It means that if you make a claim in a community, you are accountable to evidence. You owe the community a reason. You owe them a receipt.
Receipts, that's the modern slang for it, right? Show me the receipts.
Exactly. And the fact that we use that slang is actually a sign of a healthy immune norm trying to assert itself in digital spaces. Accountable talk is a vital filtering mechanism.
But it feels like that norm is slipping.
It is. If we allow public figures or our friends or news anchors to just make wild, unsubstantiated claims without ever asking for the receipt, The immune system of the entire group weakens. We literally forget how to filter.
Okay, so we have the system design mapped out. We have the fulcrum, the social scaffolding, the accountable talk. It sounds robust on paper. So why is it failing so spectacularly? Why do we continually let the parasites in? Because clearly we do.
This takes us to the incentive architecture, to the architecture of vulnerability. Why does the immune system fail to reject a bad idea? The source material points to a few key mechanisms, and the first one is biological mimicry.
Mimicry, like a caterpillar that evolves to look exactly like a twig so birds don't eat it.
Or a physical virus that mimics a protein the body actually needs so it gets invited into the cell. In nature, camouflage is a primary survival strategy.
Makes sense.
Bad ideas do the exact same thing. They evolve to look like good ideas. A dangerous, hateful ideology rarely introduces itself at the front door saying, "Hi, I'm evil and I want to hurt people."
No, it introduces itself as justice or patriotism or protecting the children.
Precisely. Let's go back to Robert Bowers for a second. The white genocide theory that motivated him didn't present itself to his conscious mind as hate. It presented itself as defense.
Right, he thought he was protecting his people.
It mimicked the virtue of protecting one's community.
Yeah.
It bypassed his immune system because it was wearing the stolen uniform of a good, noble idea.
That is so insidious. It's hacking the system by wearing a fake ID badge.
And once it is inside, it exploits another massive weakness we all have, identity protection.
Okay, what's that?
Our brains are deeply groupish. We are tribal creatures. We evolved to survive in groups, not as isolated individuals. So very often the brain prioritizes belonging over accuracy.
But from an evolutionary standpoint, isn't that necessary? Like, if I'm a hunter-gatherer and I disagree with the tribe about which god to pray to or which valley is safe, I get kicked out, and then I get eaten by a lion.
Right.
So agreeing with the group is literally a survival trait.
In the Paleolithic era, yes. Being wrong but together was vastly safer than being right and completely alone.
But we aren't on the savannah anymore.
Exactly. In the modern information environment, that ancient instinct is a huge vulnerability. If my political tribe believes a certain narrative, and I publicly reject that narrative because the facts don't line up, I risk being cast out.
And the brain still processes that as a threat to physical survival.
Yes. It is a primal fear. So my mental immune system just stands down. It lets the bad idea in because rejecting it feels too dangerous to my social status and my identity.
So it helps us fit in, but it completely rots our ability to see objective reality.
The author notes that bad ideas are very often short-term beneficial. They make us feel safe or righteous, or they give us a status boost within our specific group, but they are long-term harmful.
It's like eating junk food.
Yeah.
It tastes great right now, it feels comforting, but if you do it every day for 20 years, your physical system collapses.
A very apt analogy.
Wow.
It's the sugar rush of tribal validation versus the actual nutritional value of the truth.
Now, we have touched on something the source material discusses that is quite sensitive, but it's really crucial to the systems analysis here, the concept of faith.
Yes, this is a delicate but necessary part of the framework.
And I want to be really clear to you listening. We aren't bashing religion here. The host and I aren't taking sides. We are simply looking at how the structural mechanics of faith-based thinking interact with this cognitive immune system according to the text.
Correct. We must remain neutral and analytical. The text analyzes faith strictly as a system mechanic.
Okay.
In any cognitive immune system, you need filters. You need strict criteria to reject ideas. Usually that core criteria is insufficient evidence.
Right. If I tell you the moon is made of green cheese, your immune system rejects it instantly because there is zero evidence for it.
But faith, structurally speaking, is very often defined as belief without evidence, or sometimes even belief in spite of conflicting evidence.
Right.
The argument here is that if a culture elevates this specific mechanic, if it culturally establishes that believing without evidence is a high moral virtue, it creates a massive gaping loophole in the public immune system.
It's like telling the security guard at the front gate, hey, everyone needs a badge to get in. But if someone shows up without a badge and says they really, really belong here, that's actually our most special VIP guest. Let them right in.
And the systemic problem is, once you create that get-out-of-jail-free card for reasoning, you can't control who uses it.
Ah.
You might intend that loophole strictly for benign, personal, spiritual beliefs, like, I believe in universal love and harmony.
Which is harmless or even helpful.
Right. But a political extremist or a conspiracy theorist can use that exact same mechanic. They can say, I don't need empirical evidence that the election was stolen or that this group is evil. I just have faith in it. I feel it.
It completely disables the immune response.
Yes, it tells the white blood cells to stand down and stop asking questions.
It effectively removes the fulcrum we talked about earlier. It formally says you don't need to yield to reasons anymore.
It creates a structural weakness. Now, it's important to say this doesn't mean every person of faith has a broken mind. Far from it. Many people compartmentalize beautifully. They use faith for the spiritual and rigorous evidence for the material world.
Right.
But it means the system of belief without evidence is a vulnerability that parasites can, and routinely do, exploit to bypass our filters.
Speaking of bypassing filters, there is another immune disruptor mentioned in the deep dive, a phrase we hear all the time in casual conversation. Who are you to say?
Ah, yes. The ultimate relativistic shield. Who are you to say what's true? Everyone has their own truth.
It sounds so open-minded when you hear it. It sounds like, hey, let's be humble. Let's not judge, and we should be humble, right?
Humility is vital, but the phrase, who are you to say, functions as weaponized humility. Mechanically, as an immunosuppressant.
How?
It completely shuts down the diagnostic process. If I point out, hey, that idea you're sharing is demonstrably false and actually harmful, and you respond with, well, who are you to say?
Yeah.
You have just stopped the immune system from doing its job. You've declared that the act of judgment itself is invalid.
It allows bad ideas to just fester under the guise of politeness and tolerance.
Exactly. It creates a socially protected space where the mind parasite can replicate safely without ever being bothered by the antibodies of reason or accountable talk.
Okay, so we have the design and we have the vulnerabilities and incentives. Now let's look at the outcomes. What actually happens when this system really starts to fail on an individual level? The text describes two main directions this can go. One is obviously immune deficiency.
Right, that's the gullible mind, the mind that becomes overly porous. It accepts everything that comes its way. Conspiracy theories, fake news, cult dynamics, marketing scams.
Yeah.
Filters broken so the garbage just flows right in and sets up shop.
But the other failure mode really surprised me. Autoimmune disorder.
This is a fascinating concept. In the physical body, an autoimmune disease is when the immune system gets confused and starts attacking the host's own healthy cells. It becomes hyper-aggressive.
Right.
In the mind, this manifests as extreme corrosive skepticism.
The person who refuses to believe anything at all.
Yes. The mindset of the mainstream media is always lying, all scientists are corrupt, all institutions are fake, even my own eyes are lying to me.
And the irony is, people in that state usually think they are the ultimate critical thinkers.
Exactly. They pride themselves on being awake. But they are actually suffering from an autoimmune attack on their own cognition. They are violently attacking valid information. They're attacking the shared reality that allows them to function in society. The source material calls this analysis paralysis, or just the outright denial of reality.
And when you get really deep into either of these states, you reach what we call the unhinged mind, where the fulcrum is completely broken. The text uses a joke to illustrate this, and I want to share it because it perfectly captures this state. It's the story of Fred the Flat Earther.
It's a dark bit of humor, but it illustrates the unpersuadable state perfectly.
So Fred is a die-hard flat earther. He spends his whole life arguing about it. Eventually, Fred dies and goes to heaven. He meets God at the pearly gates, and God says, Fred, welcome to heaven. You have lived a good life. You can ask me any one question, and I will give you the absolute truth.
And Fred knows exactly what he wants to ask.
Right. Fred says, God, I have to know. This debate has consumed my entire life. Is the earth flat or is it round?
And God looks at him and says, it's round, Fred. It's perfectly spherical. I made it myself. Here, look down. You can see it.
And Fred pauses. He looks at God suspiciously. He narrows his eyes, looks around, and whispers, my God, the conspiracy goes higher than I thought.
It's funny, but when you stop laughing, it's actually terrifying.
It really is.
It is terrifying because it models a systemscape where evidence, even ultimate, undeniable evidence handed down from the Almighty, cannot shift the belief on the lever. The lever is broken. The belief is hermetically sealed off from reality.
Fred is completely immune to reality.
He has prioritized the preservation of his conspiracy identity over the direct input of the Creator.
And while Fred is just a joke, the consequences in the real world are absolutely not a joke. Which brings us to a section of the deep dive that I think hit me the hardest. The ship owner parable.
Yes.
This isn't Norman's story originally. It's from a 19th century philosopher named W.K. Clifford.
W.K. Clifford's famous essay, The Ethics of Belief. It is a foundational text for this entire subject of cognitive immunology.
I really want to walk through this slowly because it fundamentally changes how you look at your own private thoughts.
Let's do it.
So imagine a ship owner. He has an emigrant ship that takes families across the ocean, but the ship is old, it's not well built, it's seen a lot of harsh voyages, and it's getting rusty. He knows deep down in his gut that he should probably dry dock it and do a full overhaul. He needs to inspect it.
But inspections cost a lot of money. Repairs take time. And he has tickets to sell right now.
Exactly. So he starts to work. He thinks, is the ship actually safe? But then he actively starts to push those doubts down. He tells himself a comforting story. He says, you know what? It's sailed safely so many times before. It's a tough old bird. Providence will protect these poor families seeking a better life.
He is willfully suppressing his own immune response to the danger.
Yes. He manufactures a firm belief that the ship is completely safe. And so he watches the ship sail away from the dock with a light heart. He feels benevolent, wishing them a safe journey.
And then the ship sinks in the middle of the ocean and absolutely everyone drowns.
Now, Clifford asks a very simple question. Is the ship owner guilty?
And intuitively, every single one of us says, yes, of course. He was negligent. He sent them to their deaths.
But here is the pivot. And this is where Clifford and, by extension, Norman get really radical. Clifford argues that the ship owner is guilty even if the ship had made the voyage safely.
Wait, really? Even if no one died?
Yes.
Even if the ship arrived in New York and everyone got off safely and lived long, happy lives, he's still guilty?
Yes. Because his crime was not the outcome. His crime was the method of believing. Yeah. He had no right to believe the ship was safe on such wildly insufficient evidence. By forcing himself to believe it, he polluted the stream of collective knowledge. He took a massive risk with other people's lives based on a sloppy, negligent cognitive process.
He was essentially driving under the influence of a bad belief.
Exactly. Just because a drunk driver makes it home without hitting anyone doesn't mean they weren't reckless and guilty.
That is powerful. And in the age of the internet, this hits incredibly hard. Because if you think about it, we are all ship owners now.
How so? Connect that for us.
Every time you share a news story on social media without actually reading past the headline, you're launching a ship. When you offer unverified medical advice to a friend based on a random blog post you saw, you are launching a ship.
When you vote based on a conspiracy theory,
you are launching a massive ship.
And if that ship sinks, if that medical advice hurts your friend, or if that conspiracy theory leads to a riot or violence, we are responsible.
Misinformation is not a victimless crime. Norman is arguing that we have an ethical duty to monitor our beliefs. We tend to think, hey, it's a free country, I have a right to my opinion. And legally speaking, sure you do.
You can think what you want.
But ethically, if your opinion is that vaccines cause magnetism or that a legitimate election was rigged, and you hold that opinion without verifiable evidence, you are the negligent ship owner. You are actively degrading the safety of the entire community.
Which connects right back to the core theme here. We think our beliefs are entirely private, my mind, my business. But the systems analysis says that your cognitive health is actually a matter of public safety.
Just as my physical health affects you. If I am carrying a highly contagious physical virus and I refuse to wear a mask or stay home, you might get sick. My physical health affects the safety of the community.
Right.
The same is true for the mind. If my mind harbors and nurtures mental parasites, I become a vector. I can infect others with hateful or false ideas, or I can support policies that do tangible harm to everyone.
Okay, this leads us to the question of persistence in the system. Why does this broken system stay broken? Why don't human communities just naturally autocorrect and fix this? If bad ideas hurt us, why do we hold on to them so tightly?
The text details the feedback loops involved. Specifically, what he calls the feedback loop of dogma. It's a vicious cycle that locks the system down.
How does it start?
It starts with simple belief protection. You cherish a specific belief, maybe it's a political identity, maybe a cultural narrative, so you decide to protect it from rigorous questioning.
You basically put up a do not disturb sign on that specific part of your brain.
Right. But here is the loop. Reduced questioning leads to the belief becoming more rigid. It becomes dogmatic.
Because it's never tested.
Exactly. And increased dogma, by its nature, demands even more protection from outside scrutiny. So it spirals. The more you protect the belief, the weaker your fulcrum gets, which means you have to protect it even more aggressively.
And as it spirals within individuals, it starts to kill the norms of the entire community around it.
Yes. We talked earlier about norms being expectations. If I stop expecting you to make sense, and you stop expecting me to back up my claims with evidence, the shared norm of reason just evaporates. The author talks about the death of norms.
And we see this everywhere right now.
We really do. If blowhards, whether they are pundits, politicians, or social media influencers, can lie publicly without any consequence, if there is zero social cost for being blatantly irrational, the immune system of the entire culture atrophies.
It's exactly like a muscle. If you don't use it, it withers away. If we don't actively hold people accountable for what they say, we lose the collective ability to do so.
And that's when entire subcultures can become immune compromised.
Yeah.
They develop their own antigens, but against valid outside information. They start labeling anything that contradicts their dogma as fake news or heresy or a deep state plot.
It creates a closed loop.
A conspiracy cascade.
Yeah.
It becomes a sealed ecosystem where only the parasite can survive, and truth is treated as the virus.
Okay, we are painting a pretty dark picture here. The system is incredibly prone to failure. The mental parasites are constantly evolving to mimic our virtues, and our cultural norms of accountability are dying. It sounds bleak.
It does.
But the source material is called mental immunity, not mental doom. There is a solution proposed here.
There is a solution, and it brings us right back to the macro systems view. The book connects this directly to the concept of public health.
Okay, let's explore that.
Think about the history of physical medicine. For centuries, we thought sickness was caused by bad humors or miasma or demons.
We had no idea what was actually happening.
Then we discovered germ theory. We realized invisible pathogens were the cause. So we developed vaccines. We developed sanitation systems. We created the entire field of public health.
And we've done the same thing for our digital systems. We have digital public health in the form of cybersecurity, firewalls, and antivirus software.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But currently, we have no formalized cognitive public health. We are acting like it's 1347, the plague is spreading from town to town, and we're all just shrugging our shoulders. The deep dive argues we desperately need cognitive immunology to be recognized as a formal science, similar to how we needed germ theory to finally stop cholera.
So if we are talking about immunology, what does the cognitive vaccine actually look like? He talks about inoculation theory. Is this real, actionable science or just a wishful concept?
Oh, it is very real. It is empirical psychological science that has been tested in labs for decades. Just as a physical vaccine gives your body a weakened, dead version of a virus to train your antibody safely, you can literally inoculate a human mind against a bad idea.
Okay, walk me through this. How do I inoculate myself, or how do I inoculate someone I care about? Give me a concrete example. Let's say a medical scam, a miracle cure.
Perfect example. Let's say there's a new miracle vitamin sweeping across the internet. The ads claim it cures everything from baldness to terminal cancer.
Classic snake oil.
Right. Now, the traditional method of dealing with this and debunking. You wait until your uncle buys a case of it, and then you try to sit him down and say, hey, I looked this up. This is fake.
Which almost never works.
It rarely works. He's already invested his money in his ego.
He's already the ship owner. He's committed to the voyage.
Exactly. So inoculation, or what psychologists call pre-bunking, happens before he ever sees the product.
How does that work?
You sit down with him and say, hey, have you noticed how many internet scams lately are using the exact phrase, the one secret doctors don't want you to know?
Okay.
You explain it as a classic manipulation tactic. They use that specific phrasing to make you feel like you have access to secret, elite knowledge. That way you feel special, and you don't bother asking to see clinical trials.
So you are warning them about the tactic itself, not the specific product.
Yes. You give their mind a weakened version of the argument. You expose the strings of the puppet. Then, 2 weeks later, your uncle is scrolling online, and he sees the ad for the miracle vitamin. And the headline says, what doctors won't tell you.
And his immune system kicks in.
Instantly. He thinks, wait a minute, I know this trick. This is exactly that manipulation tactic we talked about.
You've given him the antibody.
You've empowered him to spot the structural pattern of the lie. His mind naturally rejects the parasite because it recognizes the mechanism of manipulation before it can take root.
That is brilliant. It really seems like something that should be taught in schools from day one. I mean, why are we memorizing the periodic table but not learning how to spot basic psychological manipulation tactics?
It absolutely should be foundational education. Norman argues that our entire education system needs to shift from teaching students what to think to teaching them how to filter. And our broader institutions need to reinforce this.
Like the scientific community.
Yes. In his view, science isn't just a static body of knowledge in a textbook. Science is a formalized immune system for human understanding.
I love that definition. Science is a process of organized skepticism.
Think about peer review. Peer review is literally an immune response. It's a formalized system where we invite other smart people to relentlessly attack our ideas to see if they can survive. If I publish a scientific paper, I am essentially asking the community, please try your hardest to kill this idea. If you can't kill it, then maybe, just maybe, it's true.
That's such a great reframing. Peer review isn't annoying academic gatekeeping, it's the white blood cells of the community swarming an intruder to test its validity.
And our political institutions desperately need this normative structure too. A functioning democracy requires a baseline of shared reality. We need to maintain herd immunity to utter nonsense.
Mm.
If too many citizens become infected with anti-democratic or anti-reality parasites, the entire system collapses.
Which brings us to the big pivot of this deep dive. We have looked at the biology metaphor, the leverage of the fulcrum, the failure modes, the shipowner parable. But I want to explicitly ask the big question that this show centers on. Expert, looking at all of this tree of life, the levers, the shipowners, what is the crisis in perception here?
The crisis in perception is that we are perceiving ideas as inert playthings that we possess. We say things like, I have an idea. But the reality, the deep systems reality, is that ideas are living agents that possess us.
We aren't the masters of the ideas, we are the hosts.
We are the organic hosts for an entire ecosystem of information. And the second layer of this misperception is that we look at bad beliefs, conspiracy theories, extremism, and we perceive them as a lack of intelligence or a lack of formal education.
We think, oh, that person is just dumb.
Right. But the systems analysis reveals that incredibly smart people can have completely broken fulcrums. Robert Bowers wasn't necessarily stupid in terms of raw IQ. He had a catastrophic immune failure.
So the crucial shift in perception is moving from judging intelligence to diagnosing immunity.
Yes. And finally, realizing that cognitive health is public infrastructure, not private virtue. We have been conditioned to view our minds as absolute private property. But if your mind becomes a breeding ground for a violent contagion that threatens the synagogue down the street or the Capitol building or public health policies, then your cognitive health is absolutely a matter of public concern.
That is a very heavy realization. It means we all have a profound civic duty.
We do. We have an ethical duty to weed the mental garden. And not just for our own inner peace of mind, but because weeds spread. If I let my yard go to hell and get overrun, your yard is going to get infested next.
It takes us all the way back to the contrast at the Tree of Life. We want a world where a child like Kai can make an innocent, beautiful connection, seeing God in the face of a kind stranger, without having to live in a world where a grown man makes a deadly, infected connection, seeing an invading enemy in his innocent neighbors.
And the difference between those two worlds lies entirely in the health of the fulcrum, the norm of yielding to better reasons. It is the only thing anchoring us to reality, and ultimately, to each other.
Well, that is a tremendous amount to process, but it actually gives us a toolkit. We can check our own levers, we can inoculate ourselves and our kids, we can demand accountable talk, we can choose to be responsible ship owners.
We can choose to be good neighbors in the cognitive sense.
Crisis in Perception examines how systems shape belief and how better tools help us see clearly.
This project is free and publicly accessible. If you'd like to support the time, tools, and research behind crisis and perception, you can become a supporter on Patreon.
For a shorter visual overview of this topic, see the mini explainer linked in the description.
If you enjoy this kind of systems-level analysis, please like, subscribe, and comment with books or topics you'd like us to explore next.